I remember and I've told this story before, when I got into the Army, in basic training, I was the absolute worst soldier of all time because I hated being there. I hated the reason that I was there, and I just didn't want to do it. It was the Army's job to break you down and mold you into who they wanted you to be. However, after I graduated basic and we went to our advanced school, and I started learning about the actual job that I was going to do, I was the valedictorian of our entire class of all the soldiers in the entire battery. I remember my drill sergeants telling the ones that I had in basic who I had become. That I was a valedictorian, that I was the absolute best soldier, and they were already looking for me to go to, to RIP, to Ranger School, to SEAL training, to airborne. They wanted me to do all these things, special forces. And the drill sergeant from basic could not believe that I was the same person, or they took credit for that they brought it out of me. It wasn't that at all. A quote that I heard was, just as we have 2 eyes and 2 feet, duality is a part of life. Hello, Governor. This is Rekkai Steed, nupefromdaville. We're going to jump right into this. I'm going over episode 3 of the Acolyte, Star Wars. And I know that if you look at my, past reviews, or we did a live, it ain't hitting on nothing. There's been so much vitriol and hate for this particular series. And there's a hate for a lot of everything that is on Disney these days, because Disney is accused of being woke, which is the dumbest term, mostly used by conservatives or just people with way too much hate in their heart, so they label an entire thing instead of being specific about what it is you don't like. Most of the people that say that they hate the Acolyte and it's the worst show that's ever put on, have never actually watched it. They've watched a clip here or there, or they listen to what other people say. All the review bombing, 70+% of the review bombing is AI generated reviews from brand new accounts. Why someone has that much time on their hands to review bomb something is beyond me. Is it a perfect Star Wars series? No. Is it good? It's mid right now. It's getting there. Episode 1 was a fail to me. A pilot episode is supposed to hook you and keep you there. It did not do that for me. Episode 2 was better, but at this point, the story is still kind of weak, and we don't have any well-defined villains for an 8-episode series. Who is the villain? Because you've made it out to be May, and I'm not convinced that she is the villain. I'm convinced right now that she's got some evil in her. She's, leaning towards the dark side or whatever, but who is the actual Acolyte? Like, what are we doing here? So episode 3 came out. And we learn of the coven of witches that remind you very much of the Night Sisters and Mother Tamsin and Asajj Ventress and Morgan Elsbeth. It reminds you very much of that. Darth Maul and Savage Opress. And if you don't know who that is, then you should count yourself out as being a Star Wars fan altogether. Shut up and don't talk to me. If you've not seen the Clone Wars or Rebels, you're not a Star Wars fan anyway. I digress. The Coven of Witches. We find out that May and Osha are special. They're twins. And apparently they've been created in some sort of manner, because there does not seem to be a father. This is not traditional child making as we know it. So there's an interesting thing happening here. What it is, we don't know exactly right now. The assumption is that some sort of magic, dark magic, was used to create these children, and they're special, they're strong in the ways of the Force, in the ways that the Force is used through the magic of the Night Sisters or whatever, their coven of witches. But what exactly we have here, I don't know yet. But all of the reviews and things for the people who said they had seen episode 3 and episode before it came out, was said that, there's use of all sorts of pronouns and it's the gayest episode ever. There is one scene between Mother Alsea, who is played sublimely by Jodie Turner-Smith. Like, she turns in a killer performance. Like, she commands the screen. Fantastic. And then Mother Coral. There's one scene that gives you the impression that they're together in a way, maybe romantically, but it doesn't give more than that. What people are talking about online, I have no idea, and it's clear that they have not watched this. I understand. I grew up with Star Wars too. And it's a thing about representation. However, you're a representative of the world. And if you can't wrap your head around the fact that there's all sorts of different people in the world, and that's it, they're just people. Some of us have a little bit more tan than the other. That does not have anything to do with your brain capacity or how quick your reflexes is or any of that. None of it. There are 6'10" white boys too. So what's the name? I wasn't born 6'8". I am not LeBron James. But neither are you Nikola Jokic. It just is that way. However you tend to use your time and talents, that's on you. And this review bombing is really beyond past my nerves. Throughout history, we've seen this thing about duality. And it's usually represented in twins, like Gemini. We understand if a person tells you that they're a Gemini, you understand right off the bat that they have this duality, because the twins, one's good, one's bad. You get it. It's not a big question. We saw it in Anakin Skywalker. He had this duality. He always had kind of a tinge of a dark side to him, and we wrote it off because he started his Jedi training late. So he had more attachment and more emotions. But I've always had that problem with the Jedi because it did not make sense to divorce yourself from all emotions. Even Shaolin monks had emotions. They just were logical, practical. They weren't tied to material things. The Jedi seem to think that if you shut yourself from all emotions, that makes you a better Jedi. And it almost seems like the reasoning for it is because if you had too much emotion, it led you to the dark side, and you might not know how to deal with that. So then you're automatically going to be a Sith, and that makes no sense. And anyone who has read books, knows about Star Wars in the first place, knows that there's more than just the Jedi and the Sith. Those are two religions within the broader scope of things. But because that's what's presented to us in the movie, space wizards and laser swords, a lot of people can't get past. You don't know what you don't know. And the sad thing is, a lot of people, especially those review bombing, don't know because they don't want to know. They'll be the first ones to tell you, I never watched the Clone Wars because that's animated. It's cartoons. That's for kids. And that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's some of the best Star Wars storytelling. Just the medium that they used was animated. Anyway, they're giving us the story of May and Osha, the twins, and there's a duality. Osha seems to be the good one. She wants to be a Jedi, and she wants to get out. And there's something to be said about being raised on a world where the only child that you've ever seen for all of your 8 to 10 years of life has been your twin sister. There's a difference in kids who are homeschooled and those who go to public school or even private school, because the socialization part is very important. I understand you learn from your parents, you learn from the group that you're within, but you also learn from other kids. Osha wanted that. She needed that. And May didn't, because that tinge of the dark side, she was okay. As a matter of fact, it helped her stay closed off. I don't have to understand other people. I don't have to understand their feelings. I don't have any big thing like this, and I think that the review bombing is stupid, and that people should, if you watch all 8 episodes, you say it wasn't good, then it wasn't good. Right now, it's mid. It's not great. Not all seasons of Mandalorian were great. Some were really good, and some were like, what is this? I'll end it with this, and I'll just say, just as there are 2 sides to every story, there are 2 sides to every person. There's one that we reveal to the world, and one that we keep hidden inside ourselves. A duality that's governed by the balance of light and dark within each of us is the capacity for good and for evil. Where you fall on that side of the equation, that's up to you. This is Rekkai Steed, nupefromdaville. Hit the like, leave a comment. Go in the description to find the episode that the reaction is based off of. Subscribe and share. It's all about this and all about this.